Imagine you're at like a neighborhood party.
Okay, yeah. Setting the scene.
Yeah, it's a nice evening. You're standing out on a lawn somewhere with, red plastic cup in your hand.
Classic.
Right. And you're just catching up with friends. And then out of nowhere, these three guys from the apartment complex across the street, they just wander over.
Hello.
They give this friendly wave. They try to join in. And you, being polite, you just tell them, hey, sorry, it's a private party.
Right, just turning them away.
Exactly. And they ask if they can, at least grab a beer. You hand one over, they wave again, and they just walk away.
Crisis averted, right?
Right. You go right back to your conversation. But what you don't know, and honestly what you will literally never know, is that one of those guys was holding a loaded .357 Magnum.
Wow.
Yeah. The only reason you aren't the lead story on the evening news right then is because a few minutes prior, one of those guys looked at his friend and whispered a single word.
It's just wild to think about because, we spend an enormous amount of resources studying the anatomy of disasters.
Oh, totally. Like forensics, inquiries, all that.
Exactly. We forensically examine how systems fail or the cascade of errors that lead to violence. We analyze the psychology of headlines.
Right.
But we almost never put a microscope over a disaster that was averted. We rarely look at the exact psychological mechanisms of how a tragedy is dismantled.
Dismantled in real time, yeah.
Right, in the shadows, basically, before a police report is ever even filed.
And that is actually the exact mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at this really raw, first-hand document. It's simply titled Say No. Docs.
Such a simple title for something so intense.
I know, right? It contains the lyrics to a spoken word piece or a song called Say No, and there is absolutely no academic distance here.
No, it puts you right in the room.
Literally. It puts us directly inside an apartment in Northeast LA, giving us this minute-by-minute dissection of street-level de-escalation.
And it shows us how egos and intoxicants and, frankly, deadly weapons are managed by someone with zero formal training.
Right. No badge, no uniform.
Exactly. Just an absolute raw mastery of reading a room.
So to really understand how this de-escalation works, we have to establish the baseline nervous system of the people in this story.
Yeah, the environment is everything here.
The narrator explicitly describes living in what they call a slum complex in Northeast LA.
And they mention heavy drinking, right?
Yeah, heavy drinking and having, this is a quote, lots of dope on deck.
Wow.
And then they compare the daily atmosphere of this complex to being, quote, too much like Iraq.
Which is such a heavy comparison, because that comparison to a war zone,
Yeah.
It tells you everything about the physical state these individuals are operating in.
Yeah, you're not exactly kicking back and relaxing.
Not at all. Your body's just flooded with cortisol. You're living in this chronic state of hypervigilance.
Where literally any sudden movement is a threat.
Right. Any unexpected noise is processed by the brain as a lethal threat. And in an environment defined by chronic stress like that, the prefrontal cortex is basically offline.
The prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, that's the part of the brain responsible for, long-term planning, impulse control, it gets suppressed. And the amygdala, which handles immediate threat response, that just completely takes over.
So everyone is just running on raw survival instinct.
Exactly. And the source introduces us to three figures operating in this heightened state. So first you have the narrator.
Right.
We learned they were previously unhoused.
Mm-hmm.
And their absolute driving motivation in life is just maintaining their current housing.
Yeah, they want to avoid going back to county jail at all costs.
But that fear is basically their anchor to reality.
Okay, so that's the narrator. Then you have the older neighbor whose apartment they're actually in.
Right.
The narrator calls him a pretty good guy, but then immediately follows up by noting he is hardly ever sober.
Which sets a tone.
Yeah, and the narrator also admits to being under the influence too. So before anything even happens, the baseline of reality in this room is already totally warped by altered states of consciousness.
It's a powder keg.
Yeah.
And the volatility is really introduced by the third figure, right?
Yeah.
The young gangster.
The neighbor's friend, yeah.
Right. And the narrator drops a line about this kid that, honestly, it completely reframes how we typically view street violence.
Which line was that?
They note that this young man would bring people their end as they were lonely.
I remember reading that and just stopping. What is actually driving this kid?
Yeah.
Is he just some psychopath looking to build a body count just for the sake of it? Because framing murder as a symptom of loneliness is, it's incredibly unsettling.
It is. But the text strongly points away from psychopathy, actually, and points towards severe social isolation.
Really?
Yeah. In marginalized environments, violence often functions as, like, an inverted form of intimacy or connection.
Wait, violence as connection? That's really interesting.
Yet, think about it.
Hmm.
If you lack status, if you lack a supportive family structure, and the narrator specifically mentions thanking the kid's mom for being at work so they can hang out.
Oh, right. So there's absent parents involved.
Exactly. So if you lack all that, inflicting violence becomes a guaranteed way to force the world to acknowledge your existence.
Wow.
The young gangster is described as being stoked just to be chilling at this apartment. He's seeking a living room, you know. He's just seeking a place to belong for a Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, so let me put this together. It's like a chemical equation missing a catalyst. You have this deeply isolated teenager looking for validation, right?
Right.
Sitting in a room with two older guys who are intoxicated, in an environment where everyone's nervous system is primed for combat,
It's the perfect storm.
and they're all just sitting around a table. And then the kid pulls out a .357 Magnum.
And the motivation for pulling the gun here is critical. He doesn't draw the weapon because there's an argument.
No, nobody was fighting.
There's no immediate threat at all. He pulls it out, according to the lyrics, just to brag that he had one.
Just showing off.
Yeah, it's purely an assertion of status. He's presenting this high-value, lethal object to his peers just to demonstrate his worth. He wants to secure his place in the social hierarchy of that room.
But then the narrator's reaction is what caught me completely off guard.
Oh, yeah.
They don't back away. They say, "Let me see it." And the kid hands over this loaded hand cannon.
Just passes it across the table.
Yeah. And the narrator points it at the drywall of the apartment. And the document explicitly says they would have loved to shoot the wall, but wasn't quite sober.
It's terrifyingly casual.
It is. They genuinely wanted to pull the trigger right then and there. I mean, what is happening in the brain when someone holds a weapon like that? The narrator isn't even angry at the wall. The tool itself just seems to demand to be used.
Yeah, so psychologists actually refer to this as the weapons effect.
The weapon's effect.
Right. It's the phenomenon where the mere presence of a weapon, or in this case, like the physical weight of it in your hand, actually increases aggressive thoughts and behaviors.
Just by holding it.
Yeah, through a process called cognitive priming.
Kind of like how seeing a bed makes you feel sleepy, or seeing a cold glass of water suddenly makes you notice you're thirsty.
Very similar, yeah.
Yeah.
In cognitive psychology, objects have what we call affordances.
Okay.
A chair affords sitting. A .357 Magnum affords shooting.
Right.
When you hold it, especially when alcohol or amphetamines have lowered your baseline inhibitions, the neural pathways associated with discharging that weapon get activated.
So the logical brain is just completely bypassed.
Exactly, bypassed by the mechanical, almost tactile urge to just see the machine work.
But the narrator doesn't pull the trigger. They actually manage to hand the gun back. And looking at the lyrics, it's not because of, like, a sudden moral awakening about gun violence.
No, it's entirely pragmatic.
Right.
The narrator runs this rapid-fire mental simulation of the bureaucratic consequences.
Like getting kicked out.
Yes. If they pull that trigger, the landlord calls the police. They lose their status of being housed. They visualize themselves crying on their knees, being evicted, and ultimately ending up back in county jail.
So it's just pure, immediate self-preservation.
It is the immediate selfish terror of losing their fragile stability that acts as a circuit breaker against the weapon's effect.
Wow.
So they hand the gun back to the young gangster.
But handing the gun back doesn't actually neutralize the danger.
Not at all.
Because the gun is still in the room, the young gangster's still holding it. And right at that exact moment, an external stimulus introduces a massive new variable.
The party.
Yeah, party starts up across the street. And the narrator makes a very specific sociological observation about the people arriving at this party.
Yeah, they refer to them as citizens and no smack.
Which is such a striking phrase.
It really is, meaning these are normal, housed people throwing a gathering that doesn't involve heroin.
But the word citizens does so much heavy lifting there, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
It instantly draws this harsh boundary line. It implies that the narrator, the neighbor, and the young gangster, they view themselves as non-citizens.
Yes.
They are outsiders looking at an entirely different social class operating right across the street.
It establishes this rigid in-group versus out-group dynamic.
Oh.
So the trio decides, hey, we should head over and check out the party.
Right.
But the young gangster, who we know is holding the Magnum, and is currently heavily under the influence of, quote, a lot of speed.
Such a bad combination.
Horrible. He proposes an idea. He suggests that he should pull a gun out at the party just to leave all these citizens so scared.
He wants to walk into a peaceful gathering and brandish a hand cannon purely to watch normal people panic.
Which sounds insane, but
Right, but if you think about the psychology of that isolation we discussed earlier, it makes a twisted kind of sense. He is excluded from their safety, from their citizen status, so his impulse is to violently disrupt that safety to prove he has power over it.
that is exactly the mechanism. It's a desire to exert dominance over a world that you feel has rejected you. And this right here is the absolute crux of the document.
Yeah, this is the sliding doors moment.
This is the moment where de-escalation either succeeds or a mass tragedy occurs. The narrator intervenes forcefully, stating, no, we're pulling that out nowhere.
But look at how the narrator constructs that argument, though. Because if you or I were trying to stop a teenager from pulling a gun at a party, our first instinct would probably be a moral appeal.
Oh, for sure.
We'd say, you can't do that, there are innocent people over there, or, you're going to ruin their night.
And a moral appeal in that specific context is essentially a guaranteed failure.
Why is that?
Well, in psychology, there's a concept known as reactance theory. When people feel that their freedom or their autonomy is being threatened, for instance, by being lectured about right and wrong, they experience psychological reactance.
They push back.
They push back hard. They will double down on the forbidden behavior simply to prove they are in control.
So if the narrator had acted like a parent, it would have backfired.
Completely. If the narrator had preached to this young gangster, it likely would have triggered a defensive ego response. The kid might have pulled the gun just to prove he wasn't taking orders from anyone.
Instead, the narrator operates like a veteran hostage negotiator.
It's brilliant.
They don't judge. They align their goals with the kid's worldview. They use the threat of the penitentiary.
Yes.
The narrator warns him that pulling a gun just to scare people is exactly how you end up in the penitentiary, even if you aren't trying to make dangerous enemies.
It is a phenomenal linguistic key.
Yeah.
The narrator just bypasses morality entirely and speaks directly to the shared reality of the room.
They speak his language.
Right. By framing the penitentiary as the common enemy, the narrator validates the gangster's self-image.
Ah, I see.
They're implicitly saying, look, I know you aren't afraid of the people at that party, but the institutional machine of the state will crush both of us for a stupid stunt.
It appeals to the one bureaucratic trap that the gangster fears as much as the narrator fears county jail.
Exactly.
And the most incredible part is that it actually works on a kid who is heavily intoxicated on amphetamines.
It cuts right through it.
Yeah, the logic is so grounded in his own survival instincts that it pierces right through the high. The lyrics note that the kid got it and agreed.
He realizes he's just buzzing on speed and needs to rein it in.
So the gun stays tucked away.
The immediate lethal threat of a mass shooting is averted. However,
There's always a however.
there is. The social tension is far from resolved here. The trio still proceeds to cross the street to interact with the partygoers, which sets up a highly combustible test of ego.
Right, because they walk across the street, they put on smiles, they try to join the neighbors, and they are instantly rejected. The partygoers literally tell them later, I'm sorry guys, but this is private and we don't know you.
And the narrator observes that the neighbors simply didn't want their social circles to mix.
Which, honestly, is how most people would react. But we really need to analyze the immense danger of that specific moment.
It is incredibly dangerous.
You have a young man carrying a concealed .357 Magnum, a kid whose entire sense of self-worth is tied to status and demanding respect.
Yeah.
He has just offered a friendly gesture, crossing the street with a smile, and has been publicly rebuffed by people he already views as an outgroup.
And in street-level dynamics, public rejection is interpreted as a severe status threat,
It's an insult.
a massive insult. A bruised ego in the presence of an audience, combined with a concealed weapon, is historically one of the most common catalysts for spontaneous lethal violence.
It's the ultimate flashpoint. Rejection feels like a profound disrespect. And yet, somehow, the narrator steps in again and engineers an exit that prevents the whole thing from blowing up.
By completely swallowing their pride.
Yeah. The narrator says, no problem. I'll tell you what. Hand each of us a beer and we'll head right back to our hut.
It's just a masterful negotiation.
Yeah.
The narrator recognizes that simply walking away in silence after being rejected That leaves the young gangster with a dangerous deficit of respect.
Right, he'd feel humiliated.
Exactly. So by asking for the beers, the narrator transforms a humiliating dismissal into a transaction.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. They can see the territory, acknowledging, okay, it's a private party, but they extract a tangible token of respect.
It gives them a face-saving narrative. They aren't leaving because they were told to leave like stray dogs, you know? They're leaving because they successfully negotiated free drinks.
Exactly. It restores just enough microstatus to prevent violent retaliation.
And the neighbors, they probably just want the intrusion over quickly, so they comply and hand over the beers.
Easiest way to get rid of them.
Right. And the lyrics note that the trio smiled, waved, and left, politely behaved, no gang anyone repped. The crisis is entirely dissolved.
Just completely diffused.
I mean, put yourself in the shoes of someone at that party for a second.
I wouldn't want to know.
Right. You're standing on your lawn, you turn away 3 guys who asked for a beer, you hand them the drinks, and they leave. You would probably forget about the entire interaction by the time you finished your next sentence.
You just go back to talking about the weather.
Exactly. The asymmetry of that reality is just staggering. You have absolutely no idea that a loaded Magnum was standing 3 feet from you.
None at all.
You have no idea that your life and the lives of all your friends were secured not by a police patrol, not by a security system, but by a marginalized, intoxicated man from a slum complex who just possessed the tactical, emotional intelligence to talk his friend down.
It is the absolute definition of an invisible victory.
Mm.
And when we look at the entire narrative arc of this Say No. Doc source, the ultimate takeaway is the immense unrecognized power of peer intervention.
It really is.
The narrator synthesizes this perfectly in the final lines of the piece.
Yeah, the lyrics conclude, let me get this right, they say, if not only I said no, but so do the rest, so many lives now gone would probably be left, and potential happy beers wouldn't lead us to arrests.
It's so powerful.
Mm.
Because one person said no, first internally to their own impulse to shoot the wall, and then externally to their peer, a complete cascade of destruction was halted.
Halted in its tracks.
Yeah. De-escalation here didn't require a uniform or a badge. It required a quiet, high-stakes conversation leveraging shared reality just to keep a weapon in a waistband.
And that reality, it really challenges how we define and recognize heroism, you know?
How do you mean?
Well, we constantly build monuments, right? We hand out medals for loud, visible acts of courage. We celebrate people who run into burning buildings or engage in open conflict.
Sure, the obvious heroes.
Exactly. But when you look at the actual mechanics of this story, you have to wonder, how many of the greatest tragedies in human history, or simply the deepest tragedies in our own neighborhoods, were quietly prevented in a living room by someone smelling like alcohol who simply had the presence of mind to look their friend in the eye and say no?
Wow. Yeah, it is a profound mechanism of survival that goes completely unrecorded.
Unseen.
It forces you to consider how many times your own safety has been negotiated by strangers without you ever knowing it.
It really changes the way you look at the world and the silent decisions happening in rooms all around us every single day.
Truly.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Something to think about next time you're at a party. We'll catch you next time.